All right. So we are live despite the storm. It's slowed down raining a little bit, and the hail is done. If you can hear me, make sure you give me a thumbs up. I think we're good. The sound test is good. See the grandkids back there eating dinner, and we just survived a bunch of wind, a little bit of hail, some lightning and thunder, and a whole lot of rain. And we're looking right out the front at these people in a tent, and we're glad we're not in a tent. Their tent survived it, but it was pretty gnarly in that tent. So I see Charlie Grace from Forever Best Friend and Kyle and Ryan, KR Destinations. Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for coming in. I'll give people a little bit here to join since we're a little late getting started. They might have went to do something else. And the whole point of this session is, first of all, a big announcement around our Airbnb. Our last live session that we did at our house back in April, we talked about how fantastic Airbnb was going, and we're going to discontinue Airbnb and short-term our house, and we'll explain why a little later in this call. But that's the main huge announcement. There's a lot of details that go along with that. But before we do that, we want to bring everybody up to speed on how the grandkid vacation, Route 66 to Pacific Northwest, has been going. And so KR Destination says, hey, grandbabies.
Hi. Hi.
So you notice we've got 4. When we started, we had 5.
We lost one.
We lost one along the way. We'll explain that when we get it. So when we get to it here in just a second. We didn't lose them in a bad way. They just got homesick and went home with their parents during their parents' visit here. So first of all, let's talk about where we're at right now and where this wicked storm. It wasn't that bad, I guess, but it was pretty. It looked like it could have been bad. We actually are in Sundance, Wyoming. This is the town where the Sundance Kid got his name. So in Wyoming and Montana and Utah and these areas, a lot of great Wild West, Old West stories. And this town of Sundance is where the Sundance Kid got his name. So it's fairly small town, I think. Was there a whole lot that we saw coming into the town?
I think it was back like an exit before, but it's not very big.
I think it was a couple exits, but it wasn't a big city by any mean at all. It's close to Devil's Tower, and we are actually staying at RV park called Mountain View RV Park and Campground. And if you notice, you may have noticed, we went live earlier today, and I did a live walk around or review of the RV park. So if you're interested, if you're coming up I-90 or coming across I-90 in either direction, and you're coming through Sundance, Wyoming, it's a pretty cool place to stop. This RV park is very clean. The people are very nice, and it's right off the freeway, so it's easy on, easy off. Mountain View RV Park. If you haven't watched or you didn't see our live, you can go back and check that out as well. There's Peyton. That's our oldest granddaughter. That's who gave me the name Grandpa.
Yep.
All right. So as I mentioned, we're done with Airbnb, and we're going to run through our vacation first before we give you all the news on why we are discontinuing Airbnb. So our last live update was from Bryce Canyon. We have friends Mark and Tina on from Our Cabin on Wheels, and we did an interview with them. I think they were a few weeks into their full-time RV journey, and so they kind of gave an update on how it was going for them. And we spent some time there in Bryce Canyon. Our last video, that was our last live session, was in Bryce Canyon. Our last video that I just put out the other day was as we traveled through Oklahoma. So it was around day 3 through day 5 or 6 of our journey. So that was 4 weeks ago, basically. So we fell in behind, as I always do with getting the videos out. But if you haven't checked out some of our footage of the early parts of the vacation, you can do that. I lost grandma and gained a bunch of grandkids. Let's see here. And so that video was all about the stops through Oklahoma. So we listed a few stops. If you haven't watched that video, I might check that out. There's 3 or 4 cool stops on Route 66 along Oklahoma that were quite a bit of fun. What was your favorite one through Oklahoma? Do you remember?
Through Oklahoma was Route 66 Museum.
The museum?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Route 66 Museum in Elk City was really cool. And it's actually a lot more than just the Route 66 Museum. It's like 7 museums all for the price of one. So if you're going through Elk City, they're on Interstate 40, old Route 66. Elk City Route 66 Museum is worth a few hours stop probably. All right, so while we were at Bryce Canyon, we stayed at a place called Ruby's Campground, and that's one of my favorite campgrounds. That was a really good campground. The spots are really spacious. It's kind of state parkish, meaning it's not like an RV park. It's definitely more of an RV resort. They got a great pool there.
They do.
Lots of activities nearby. Did you like the pool at Bryce Canyon? Yeah. And so, what's that?
He liked the hot tub.
Oh yeah, they had a hot tub there too. So a pool and hot tub, and you'll kind of hear here as we go through the RV parks, the kids really like the destinations on Route 66 for the first week to 10 days. And then they just got in pool mode. They started not caring about the destinations and really just wanting to get to the RV parks and enjoy the pools. So we catered to their needs for the most part and took them to pools. You guys definitely need to settle down a little bit. I don't mind you being here, but you can't just be clowns the whole time.
They're wrestling in the background.
Grandma's going to get them and tackle them from behind. What are you doing?
I said they were wrestling from.
Yeah.
Ow!
All right. So Bryce Canyon, we mainly enjoyed the pool there and the grounds there. And if you're in Bryce Canyon area, Ruby's Campground is a very good location. They've got a huge campground there, campground resort. They've also got a hotel there, cabins, all kinds of stuff. And it's right next
a gift shop.
Yeah, right next to the gift shop and a bunch of activities you can do there. We really mainly only did one excursion while we were there. And that, where are you going? You can't go up on the dash. You can't go up on the dash right now. Weston, I said no. You can't go up on the dash. He likes to play with his truck up on the dash. Hello, Michelle the Great, New Horizons. Thanks for coming in. We're just talking about our vacation to date, and we were talking about Bryce Canyon, and we went on an excursion. And the excursion we went on, you guys remember the one?
ATV ride.
An ATV ride or ATV tour. So we had 2 ATVs. Chris drove one, I drove the other. We had all 5 grandkids at that time, and I think mine was yours the one that had more seats or less seats? Okay, so your seat, you had like 3 of the grandkids, and I had 3.
No, you
I just had 2. I had 2 grandkids, and she had 4 or 3.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. She had 4 people in hers, and I had 3 people in mine. And the guide that led us on the tour was really nice, and the whole setup process, everything was fantastic. I think from the beginning. I can't remember what was the name of the place that did it.
I don't remember.
But it was an RV tour. It wasn't like you go rent an RV and they let you go. So it was part of it was to see Bryce Canyon. And so we got going. We got our safety gear on and our mask for the dust, and we got going down the road or down the over to Bryce Canyon. And they stop in a few places and tell some stories. So it really is more like a tour. You lost your truck, didn't you? So it's more like a tour. And for I guess the first 20 or 30 minutes, we didn't really get to do much, right? It was just.
Well, we went to the creek. That was
fun.
Yeah, there was a creek that we got to go through that was pretty cool, that we got to splash through. And then they take you on a few more things. And then it gets to the part where it starts going through the trees and up and around. And we were having quite a bit of fun, even though they were well below what Chris and I used to do on ATVs as far as skill level. And as we got going more, and he stopped and told us, okay, now we're going to have some fun. And we went through these dips, and about, I guess, was it an hour long?
Yes, we were 45 minutes.
Yeah, 45 minutes in. We're cruising pretty good. We're getting pretty excited about having a little bit more fun. And I twisted it around a couple of turns, and I come to this other turn, and I kind of goose it around this turn and slide it sideways. And Chris does the same thing, and I knew she was going to do that right behind me. And then they stopped the whole the whole tour. And the guy in the back comes up and he basically walks up and he just threatens to kick me out because I slid it around the side. And he said I was being dangerous. I could flip it with the precious cargo in there. And, you know, he could have just given a warning. It was just, he was really rude about it. And honestly, all I did was gas it a little bit and it barely went sideways a little bit. And I mean, well, anyway, he went back and said the same thing to Chris and got on her. So that basically ruined it for us. We didn't tip. And we would not recommend going on that tour. I don't know if we'll go on another ATV tour because maybe they're meant for people that don't want to have fun. But the fact that he said have fun, I thought maybe I could have some fun. And it's funny. That was the one time that Landon went woohoo when we went around that corner and slid it sideways. So the kids was having fun. So yeah, Michelle, no fishtailing when you're in a tour. Even though the people in front of us were doing it all the time and never got warned, I guess because they didn't have little ones with them, but they didn't know what they were doing and they looked a lot more dangerous, out of control. They were just swerving back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They weren't doing a proper, give it a little bit of gas and turn it around the corner and do a little fishtail. So yeah, that was interesting. Anyway, it was fun. We still had fun, but we wouldn't go on that again. If we had to do ATVs again, we would just rent them and take them and have fun. All right. So from there, we traveled to, do you have anything to add about that or anything about Bryce Canyon area that I missed? She says no. A little bit of shopping there, very expensive petrified rocks, as you'll see all through that area. From there, we traveled to Ogden, Utah, and we were planning on stopping at a dinosaur-themed museum. But we found out that everything was closed except the outdoor area, and they were still charging full price. And so after we looked into it, we just decided it probably was not worth the money to stop, and the kids were ready for a pool. So we went to a nearby KOA near Ogden, Utah, just a little bit past Ogden, Utah, I believe. And they just swam the rest of the night. They had a good time in the pool there in Ogden, Utah. I just want to make sure I say hello to Joy Route and also a lucky dog, Sue. Thanks for coming in. We're just talking about our drive out to the Pacific Northwest. So right now we're in Ogden, Utah. We're on the back stretch of getting to Washington. We're hooking up with some family out there. So in Ogden, Utah, we then left and we went to a Thousand Springs Resort is what it was called. It was west of Twin Falls, Idaho. It was really gorgeous. It's down in the Snake River Gorge Canyon, and there's a bunch of falls over across the Snake River, and the campground sits right on the river, and it's got hot springs there, and also the pool is fed by the hot springs. And so the pool is really, really cool. Before we talk about the pool, one of the challenges of traveling and working is having internet. And usually when you're along the interstates, you do pretty well. When you get out in gorges and mountains, it gets a little worse. In this case, we had to get to this campground. Chris had read some reviews, said they had a good Wi-Fi, or there was good cell phone signal there or something. I can't remember which one it was. So we were getting there with the plans of 15 minutes before I had a conference meeting. Actually 30 minutes, I think, was what we were planning on getting there. You know what? No, we got there in about 40 minutes before, which gives us 20 minutes to set up, put all the electric on, all those things you got to do with setting up an RV.
Somebody forgot his headphones.
And then getting my computer out and getting going. So we got there probably 40 minutes before. I knew that there wasn't a cell phone signal, that very good cell phone signal, but I thought the park had Wi-Fi. So I went ahead and got set up. I got my computer out. No cell phone signal. So the Wi-Fi password didn't work. I walked up to the office, asked them for a Wi-Fi password, came back and got it, connected to the Wi-Fi, and there was no way it was going to support a conference call. So with 10 minutes before my customer meeting, I had to jump in the Jeep, haul it down 5-6 miles to this restaurant and get set up. And I got down there and I didn't have my headset. So I hauled it all the way back, got my headset, went back. I was just a couple minutes late and everything ended up going fine. And so far, pretty much that's usually how it's worked out. And there's Weston's face. He's on the dash. Say hi, Weston. Say hi. You don't want to say hi? And so actually 2 years of doing this, a little over 2 years, I haven't had really no customer sessions that have been affected by poor internet. And sometimes some internal sessions I'll get disconnected when we're driving, and I'll just call back in when I have signal. But so far it's working pretty well. All right, so let's talk about that hot springs pool, Thousand Springs Resort.
That was so fun.
It was relatively
The best
Water
pool.
slide.
There's two diving boards. There's a rolling log. There's a basketball court. Well, a basketball goal. They have a little kiddie area. They have cold water dumping buckets.
Yep. And what was the temperature? 98?
96.
96, somewhere around there. So it was pretty warm, but they do have cold water. Weston, they do have cold water dripping from different things, buckets that spill out.
They have the little faucet things.
Olympic sized pool. They've got areas for the kids, small areas for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't very crowded.
Yeah, and they have lifeguards.
And they have what?
Lifeguards.
Lifeguards. Yeah, they have lifeguards as well. They've got a log you can try to get up on.
Yeah.
You got a high dive and a low dive and a slide. And we will have probably a full length video on that because we had a lot of fun there.
Oh,
that was probably one of
awesome.
my favorite
It was my favorite
destinations.
Pool. Yeah.
So that's Thousand Springs Resort, and it's a fairly small RV park, but the RV spots are pretty much there's just a tent between you and the river, and you pull right in and you look over the river and you're looking right out at all of those waterfalls.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah, it's good. So recommend that one.
Mm-hmm.
Thousand Springs Resort, just west of Twins Falls in Idaho. Really gorgeous spot on Snake River with hot springs and a wonderful pool. Now the pool is an extra charge on top of your RV spot.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
And there's 2 sessions. So
there's 2 sessions.
The charge isn't for all day, it's for
Okay.
a session.
Yeah. You got a morning session and an afternoon session or a midday session and an evening session, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Don't do that, buddy. Grandbabies are super sweet. He's driving his car through the screen. All right, so let's talk about where we went next. From Twin Falls area, Idaho, we went to a kind of a remote campground in Eastern Oregon. It was in Meacham, Oregon. Westminster Woods was the name of it. Chris found it. I don't know where she found it, but this campground, this one was another one. We had 2 nights in a row that we stayed just one night, but the RV parks were so cool.
Yeah.
It was owned by a
Presbyterian church owned this property, made it into a campground, and they did their camps there. But they also, it's a full service campground spots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're very dispersed out. You go back in the woods, and you're going to hit some tree limbs probably because it's very much going back into kind of the
as big as we are.
Yeah, as big as we are in a 40-foot RV, pulling a Jeep. We didn't want to have to disconnect, so there was a couple pull through spots.
And the kids had to push down all the branches and everything.
Yeah, on the way out.
It was fun.
Yeah. So I'm going in there. We get up in there, and the host that's there met us, and she told us we're going to be the only ones in the park. And so I don't know how many spots there was, maybe 20.
How many spots there were?
How many RV spots there was?
I'm not sure.
15 or 20 RV spots.
There were.
What's that?
How many spots there were?
Yeah. How many total spots there were?
Yes.
I'm not sure. What did I say something wrong?
You said there was.
She doesn't speak, but she makes fun of me when I speak. That's not fair.
I do speak.
You speak behind. She speaks behind. All right. Okay, so anybody new come on there? Forever Best Friend. I think they were here before, and I said hi. Okay, so there's Landon getting closer, taking Weston's spot. Say hi, Landon.
Hi.
Anyway, this place, how much did it cost? $17? $27? $24, something ridiculously cheap for full hookups. We were the only one in the whole spot, and they didn't have a pool.
No, but we had.
But they had. It was like
They had
It
an
was-
amphitheater that the kids.
Yeah.
An amphitheater that
All
the
these
kids
paths.
played with, and playgrounds. There were multiple playgrounds.
Multiple playgrounds. There was an amphitheater.
There were trails.
Trails.
Yeah,
There was
trails.
this field with courts, horseshoes, and stuff like that. But mainly, the kids just played around these trails and in the
Mhm.
amphitheater and the playgrounds. But it was lots of acres, so we were kind of all over the place. And the cool thing about it was during the daylight, the kids were just all over this place because nobody else was there. We didn't have to worry about anything except a bear coming and getting landing or something. But we snuck up on them. Sasquatch. Yeah, Sasquatch. So I highly recommend that place. It's called Westminster Woods. Where do you find it? Where did you find it to book it?
I think I found it on Campendium.
Campendium. She found it on Campendium. So Westminster Woods in Meacham, Oregon, right off of,
It's kind of in between LeGrand
was it
and
I-80?
84.
84.
In between LeGrand and Pendleton, I believe.
Was it after Pendleton?
I don't know.
It was before LeGrand because we got the truck washed the next day, didn't we?
No,
Yeah. We did.
no.
Really?
Okay, I'll look and see.
Okay. Meacham, Oregon. So not exactly sure where it's in eastern Oregon, right kind of when you get in the first mountain pass that you have there. All right. So next, from there we left and
As I stated, it was in between LeGrand and Pendleton.
see. When she speaks, she's right. It's in between LeGrand and
Shall I
Pendleton,
show
Oregon.
you?
No, you don't need to show
No,
me.
please let me show you.
Well, what are you showing? You're showing me all kinds
You
of
see
things.
this white dot? This is
Yeah.
it. This is LeGrand. This is Pendleton.
All right.
I'm pretty sure that's in the middle. I might be off a little bit.
So she wants me to,
No,
even
you can't.
though it's that,
There's that white
it's right
dot.
there in the middle, the white dot between LeGrand and Pendleton, if you can make any sense of that. So I don't think you need to show them that's to say that you're right. They get it.
I was
They
just
get that you're right.
letting you guys know that we washed the unit before we went there.
We washed the unit before we got there, and the truck wash didn't do the top, so that was a little frustrating. I don't know why. Every one we've done before did the
And
whole thing.
I apologize. It was $19.
Oh, okay. Westminster Woods was only $19. I think that's a discounted rate because of the pandemic.
They did. They cut it in half.
They cut it in half. So normally they're 38, but right now when it's a slow season or something's going on, if you're coming through Meacham, Oregon, Westminster Woods gave us a discount of $19, total of $19 for full hookups. And we had a blast.
Here. There's our.
I'll show you a picture of where we were set there. So very remote. And that's
we'd
kind of
come
down
down,
the
like, right
bottom of the
there.
hill where the trail went through there and the amphitheater was. And then
Yeah.
we asked them the night
That's
before
what it was.
because we walked down to the exit, which you had an entrance and you went all the way around and you had an exit, but they had it chained up. And we just told them we would prefer not to have to try to turn the thing around. And they said, no problem. They unlocked and unchained that exit. They just cautioned us that they hadn't trimmed back the trees down there. So we had one spot where the kids had to go pull like the limbs off of the road so we could get through that spot. But it was a great time. Westminster Woods, Meacham, Oregon. And the rain stopped. So that's awesome.
No, it's still raining.
Well,
All right. So from there, we actually went to our first family destination, which was the Washougal River, Gramps Cabin. We didn't stop anywhere else after that, right? That was the last stop. And so we actually, the way this cabin is well up Washougal River, and it's in a gated kind of area. Most of the people are just vacation properties there, but Gramps has lived there for quite a few years. He's there full time. And at the top, the Washougal River Road goes by, but the old Washougal River Road kind of cuts down right in front of there. And it's just a vacant road. So we just pulled the RV in there and we boondocked at the top of the driveway, which is quite a hill to walk down there. And we stayed there for, I think, probably 6 or 7 nights to start. And that day is when all these kids' parents started arriving. So 2 of them.
the day we got there.
Yeah. These guys' parents flew in, and then Jack's parents had already drove out They drove out and met us out there. So they actually took off a little bit before us. You probably see that in some of our videos. Actually, the next video we release, which is going to be when we get to the petrified forest, that's when we connected with our oldest daughter, who has the channel Henry Does It. And so we went through the petrified forest, and then they took off and went ahead and went up, and we went and did a bunch of other things on the way out there. So when we got out there, our daughters arrived with their husbands, and we were at the cabin. And this cabin, if you've seen some of our older videos, maybe from either last year or the year before, we went out there both years and we've taken some footage. It's just absolutely gorgeous. There's absolutely no cell service there. So no cell service, no Wi-Fi. You're pretty much secluded when you're there. And so we were there for 6 or 7 nights. Our daughters got there. We had a pretty good time there. There were some things that we wanted to do, like Multnomah Falls and those things, that were shut down because all of the state things in Oregon and Washington, for the most part, all of the parks, the hiking trails, they all had signs up saying they were shut down. We still saw people like going past the barriers, but we weren't going to do that. We drove around and showed the grandkids some things, since that most of them had not been out there before, or if they had been out there, they were just babies when they were. But you guys had a great time playing at the river at the cabin.
Yeah,
right?
it was a lot of fun. I mean, we froze, but it was fun.
What's that?
We froze, but it was fun.
Actually, the first few nights that we were there, this first whole week that we were there, almost, the temperatures were cooler. Mm-hmm. And we got some rain. I think out of those 6 or 7 days, we got about 4 days of misty rain here and there, and cooler temperatures, highs in the upper 50s or low 60s. So it was pretty chilly, especially in the evening. But we had a great time visiting. One thing that was a little bit surprising, because we grew up with our kids camping, is the kids who had planned to camp, they all had tents and such. They ended up not camping and going staying with another relative. So the one thing that I think I missed the most was some of my best moments were in the evenings when we had the fires.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And none of our daughters got to really participate in that. So, but some of the grandkids did, but none of the daughters did. So it's just kind of funny how your kids seem to love camping when they're growing up, and then they kind of change when they have a 1-year-old to take care of when they're camping. A couple of them had 1-year-olds with them, our other 2 grandkids. But I mean, you and I camped when we both camped when we were younger with 1-year-olds and kids like that. So we were just a little surprised that they didn't camp more. But they had fun with the other relatives that they stayed with, and we had a lot of fun at the cabin. And then when we worked together, ate some food, did a lot of water stuff, and pretty much just enjoyed our relatives' paradise properties. Don't you think? Anything else about the cabin, the first part of the cabin that we're out there? Am I missing anything?
We swam to the moon rock.
Yeah, I
Swam to the moon rock. That's what I meant by freezing.
That was the second time, wasn't it?
No,
that was the first time.
yeah, because
That was when everybody's there.
I was the first kid there.
Yeah, there's a moon rock. There's a rock they call a moon rock that has a bunch of holes in it that they swim to on this river. It's a really cool river. And mainly, that one's, obviously, selfishly, we can tell you about this destination, but it's a destination that you really can't go to, unfortunately, because it's in the family. But we had a great time there, and we'll share some of that content with you, so you can at least kind of see that experience once I get a chance to edit it. And so, Kyle, I absolutely can't wait to hang with you guys as well. Yeah, right a month away. We are we're heading back to St. Louis now. We're almost through the trip. When we get back to St. Louis, a few weeks after that, we're going to head to Amana, Iowa, and hook up with Aaron Jemison, and K&R Destinations are going to meet us out there. We're going to do some motorcycle riding and some other cool stuff. All right, so that was the Washougal River Cabin, the first stop at the Washougal River Cabin. So on July 3rd, we left there and we went up to Lake Merwin. So our grandma Peterson. No, it's great grandma.
No, grandma.
Yeah, it's Grandma Peterson, our daughter's great grandma Peterson, and their great grandma Peterson. She's 93 years old. She still mows the lawn with a push mower. not too long ago, she was climbing mountains. So she's just a wonderful person and loves to tell stories.
She's 93.
Yeah, 93 years old. And so she's got a cabin on Lake Merwin, and her daughter also has another area there right out on the lake. And they've got all kinds of kayaks and yaks and
paddle boats.
Paddle boats and stuff like that.
So
and the cabin has this gorgeous view of Mount St. Helens when it's clear. And one of the days we were there, it was crystal clear and sunny. Actually, both days were sunny, but the first day was hazy. You couldn't see the mountain. The second day you can what's that? Hazy, cloudy. It's not hazy. You don't like the word haze? Okay. It was overcast, sort of, by the mountain. Cloudy by the mountain, I guess, is the right term. She grew up in Washingtonian. And so she corrects me when I use the wrong words. Like when I met, I called soda and she called it pop. And then the other story is when we first met and her daughters were little, she was getting ready to go to San Francisco late at the night to go see her dad down there. And she stopped by and I said, why don't you stay? I got a pallet ready for the kids. And she's thinking of a wood pallet because they never called blankets on the ground pallets. So it's funny how different parts of the country have different terminologies. So we deal with that from time to time. I just said haze. She said cloudy. So you couldn't see Mount St. Helens.
Stop it.
All right. So Lake Merwin, you guys got to do tubing? On the boat?
Tubing was fun.
We got to sit around campfires.
Kayaking, yaking,
You can
paddle boating.
So again, we didn't do anything great out there. We got some really good footage, I think, of Mount St. Helens from the drone. And we also just had a fun time with family there. We spent just July 3rd, July 4th, and we left on the 5th and went to Seaside, Oregon. So we went up to Seaside, Oregon, stayed at our RV park up there. It was actually 1,000 Trails RV park that we stayed in Seaside, Oregon for a few nights. And all our daughters went up there with us. And we did the whole Seaside shopping thing. We did the aquarium. And then we went down to Haystack Rock. Wow, that was some major lightning. Haystack Rock. And then we also, what else did we do there? Oh, played on the beach. And there was these, what were they called? Sand crabs?
Yeah, sand crabs.
Hundreds of them. So it was fun. Seaside was pretty cool. We went to Tillamook Cheese Factory on the way back.
Yep.
And these are places you guys can go to. Seaside, Oregon, not family, obviously. So you guys can go to Seaside, Oregon. They've got a cool little aquarium there where you can throw fish to the seals and you can actually touch some of the sea creatures there. It's fairly quick, small museum that you can go into and have some fun with. You can't touch the octopus anymore. You're right. But you get to have a great time there at Seaside Beach. We played on the beach and had a great time. But let's talk about the 1,000 Springs, the Seaside 1,000 Springs. It had not 1,000 Springs, 1,000 Trails, 1,000 Trails Seaside RV Resort. So it was a big RV resort across the road. It was only about a mile from Seaside, so you could actually walk there if you wanted to. And it was a little bit off the road, so it was secluded from the traffic of town. And it was a big park. It was a big 1,000 Trails park, the typical park where you go in and if you got a booking, you just go in and you find a spot and then you tell them what spot you've taken. We found a pretty good spot close to the playground. Their pool was closed.
They were remodeling.
Their pool was closed for remodeling because of the pandemic. A lot of their amenities were closed. They did have a lot of amenities there, but the biggest problem that I say with that is it was not well kept. It was a lot of things were.
The playground was falling apart.
Falling apart. The weeds were high. It was the worst 1,000 Trails we've stayed at. We had before this 1,000 Trails, we've stayed at a couple others and they were really good. And actually, we stayed at one after this that was really good. But this one, Seaside 1,000 Trails, I wouldn't really recommend it. There was a lot of shady characters there. Hopefully, some of the remodels they're doing and they'll start keeping it a little bit better because it's got potential, but it was not up to the standards that something we would recommend. From Seaside, we went to
Here's
Tillamook.
John.
We hit the cheese factory in Tillamook.
Here's
That's
John.
always fun. We've been doing that since the girls were little. So meeting our daughters there, and taking our grandkids and all going through a tour of Tillamook. And the cool thing about it was we barely got to do this because they'd been closed. All the tours have been closed up until July 6th, and we got there on the 8th.
Yeah.
So we were one of the first tours. You had to, well, you didn't have to. You could stand in line. It was a pretty long line when we got there, but we'd got a reservation, and we got to go right up and go right in and do our tour. And I didn't see too many other people on the tour, so I don't know how long those people, if you're out there, you've just got to wait till all the people that have reservations go through, because they've got a certain limit on how many people can be in there. And they've got a brand new visitor center. It's about 2 years old, but they've redone. If you've ever been there before, it's pretty cool to go again because this visitor center is pretty neat. So there was some nostalgic of the old that I kind of missed, but the new one is really modern, kind of like a food court kind of thing where you can get the Tillamook grilled cheeses and different products that Tillamook offers there if you're hungry. And then you've got all of the ice creams, but you can't sample them right now.
The grilled cheeses have a bunch of cheese.
Grilled cheese has a bunch of cheese. Yeah, that's true. It was good. I didn't like the Tillamook grilled cheese as much as Top Burger grilled cheese in Camas, Washington. Right. So from there, that was on our way back to town, and we came back and we actually went and spent a few more nights just with the grandkids. Our daughters all flew out and went home. Jessica drove back home. And Jaden actually went home with her parents. So she
was homesick.
She was homesick. She said she was homesick, so she wanted to go home with them. So they got her a ticket and flew her home. It was kind of a bummer that she went home, but being gone from home for 6 weeks as a youngin' is probably a little hard, I guess. So she went home, and these guys the other four have stayed with us, and we've been having a great time as well. But if you're watching, Jaden, hi back home.
Hi.
Let's see here. Let's see. So we stopped at the Washougal River for a few more nights, and we really had a laid back time there. Did we do anything? We didn't go anywhere, did we? Besides the float trip?
Yeah, just the float.
No.
Yeah, just
No, so we just hung out there. We visited, played.
Bathed in the river.
The neighbor had a zip line and the kids played on. Our water pump finally really completely went out, so there was no water in the RV. So we couldn't take showers. So back in old days when we used to go to this cabin before Gramps lived there, we used to go as a vacation, and it didn't have a very good shower either. Well, it doesn't have a shower. It's just got a bathtub. And so we would take baths in the river then. And so we introduced the grandkids to taking baths in the river. You want to say anything about that?
Yeah.
Well, just some didn't like it.
Yeah, one didn't like it.
And it wasn't the 3-year-old.
Yeah, it wasn't the 3-year-old.
So one and
Peyton got in first.
We won't mention any names, but one was dumped by Grandpa to finish his bath.
It wasn't these two or the 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, that just narrowed it
We
down.
won't say Jack's name, but
He wasn't a big
but he
fan
did
of
not
it.
want to get in the water and said it was too cold, and we eventually had to dunk him in the water. But what's funny about that is the very next day we went on a float trip that was 2 hours, and Jack never complained once of being in that cold water when we were on the float trip.
No, he stayed on the raft.
He stayed on the raft the whole time.
Yeah, he didn't get in.
He didn't get in the water?
No, he
No.
didn't even help him get it
No,
undone.
that's
Oh,
not
well.
true, because when he had to go to the bathroom,
yeah, he
he
did.
jumped off of that raft
Oh, yeah.
and swam.
That's right.
and
He
got
did
out,
have to
so
swim
he
into
did.
the shore because
Which
he
I'm
had to go to the
surprised
bathroom
that
part of the
didn't
way
make him
through.
pee as soon as he jumped in the water.
Yeah, seriously.
See you later, K&R. Have some good food. Can't wait to hang with you guys. All right, so that was the end of our family vacation. That was the last day when we took that float trip. It was fantastic. We got really good footage of that we'll be sharing as well. Anything else from when we were out there that I'm missing? I don't think so.
Oh, I swam the raft. I swam the raft to you guys.
When we lost the raft,
No, on the blue thing,
the blue raft being only like halfway working.
halfway working.
The one that Grandpa was floating in?
No, I was saying me, Zach, and Jack that I swam.
He had to pull.
Oh, you had to pull.
Pulled
Yeah, the
most of
boys
time.
weren't quite as
They need to work on their.
they need to work on their
troubleshooting
float
skills.
trip etiquette because everybody else got through the rapids pretty good most of the time, but they would get hung up in the rapids and they would just start flailing their legs and screaming.
Screaming.
And instead of one of them getting out and pulling the raft
all of
through, or
them
both of them getting off and pulling the raft
Zach
through.
said that it was too cold.
Yeah.
And then Jack said, I'm the youngest.
Yeah, but Landon actually was the one that kept jumping out and get. You're not the youngest. Jack was the
You
youngest.
just
That's what he said.
Oh, okay. Jack said that, so that's why he
Yes.
didn't help. Okay. So from there, we left and we went to Snoqualmie area,
Mhm.
and we stayed at another 1,000 Trails in Snoqualmie. What was the
It's
name
in
of that
Falls
one?
City. I just had it.
It was
on.
outside of Falls City. We'll get you a name for that 1,000 Trails in Snoqualmie.
Wait,
This
where
area
he got the milkshakes?
is gorgeous, and this 1,000 Trails I was extremely impressed with. So it was very well kept. We were like under these trees. It was just really nice. They have a really beautiful pool, but it was closed.
Yep.
They had a really cool playground, but it was closed. So
Tall
all the many amenities weren't there. That's right.
Tall Chief RV Resort.
Tall Chief 1,000 Trails RV Park. Very state parkish, as being you're out, your spots are pretty separated. Lots of places to play. The kids had a blast. We played on the basketball courts. Whatever was open, we did. Went on some of the trails.
Except disc golf. We haven't played disc golf this trip.
We didn't.
No, we
That
haven't.
last
We
one
never
had
played
the
disc golf,
most-
even though we have them.
Yeah.
And then from there, that day, we were there 3 days, and you guys went to the river
we went
inside the town of Falls City.
First, we went to
Snoqualmie Falls.
Falls.
Yeah, they went to Snoqualmie Falls. I had to work.
Which was a lot of fun.
I had to work, and so they went to Snoqualmie Falls.
A lot of.
I had to work. They played in the river, and then we came back, and we just really enjoyed that RV park. Then from there we went to St. Regis, Montana, which was the Nugget,
Oh, that was
the Nugget RV Park.
Yeah.
And this park, probably one of our favorites too. I mean, we've found some really good RV parks. We highly recommend St. Regis, Montana is gorgeous. The little travel center down there has the most delicious shakes.
Huckleberry.
Yeah, and
Huckleberry.
chocolate peanut butter.
Yeah, yeah. And so
And
right up the hill,
rides.
about a mile or two away, is the Nugget RV Park. It's a very nice RV park. We had a fantastic
You
view.
try to find faces in nuggets.
Faces
Golden.
on the
Faces
trees.
on the trees and gold nuggets.
Yeah. And they had a wonderful
tons
pool.
of trails.
Yeah,
They
it
had
was so
disc
much
golf
fun.
that we never played.
Yeah, they played all day long, every day they were
And
there.
then they had pool.
Pool,
A hint if you
checkers.
go there.
And checkers
Yeah.
at the laundry.
Yeah.
Which you guys
Yeah.
liked.
A hint if you go there. One of the faces is close to the pool.
Close to the pool.
Well, they got an old Western town there too, like really old,
Yeah,
like
but yeah,
1800s,
that's really-
1860s Western town, the
But you're
outhouse,
not
the jail.
Allowed to play in it.
And they're mainly for taking pictures, not really for playing on. The kids played around them a little bit.
No, they played
Actually,
in
they
it.
played inside of a couple of them because I didn't see the note on the brochure until afterwards. And they do a lot of cool things there. There's a lot of giveaways with taking pictures. The staff is fantastic. The owners and the owner's son and daughter-in-law live right there on the property, and they're at the property from 8 a.m. until late at night. So they work their butts
Even
off.
the kids work.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they have the kids working, and of course they play in the pool during the day when they have breaks and stuff like that. I'm sure it's got its benefits, but they're doing a great thing. In fact, this was probably the most well kept, with
Yes.
the largest, most well kept privately owned
Mhm.
RV park that we stayed at. Highly recommend the Nugget in St. Regis, Montana.
I'm a nugget.
All right, so we're almost finished with where we're at now. So, and then we'll give the update on Airbnb. So, we left St. Regis. We stopped in Billings, Montana at a Cabela's, and we hooked up with Mark and Tina, who were coming the other direction. So, Mark and Tina with Our Cabin on Wheels are coming from east to west, looking for property to find a place to live out here. And they're full-time RVing, and they're about 2 months into it now.
Mhm.
And so we boondocked with them at Cabela's and had a wonderful time visiting with them, finding out some of the things about their fifth wheel. We toured their fifth wheel with them. We found out they might be looking to
No, you
upgrade
can't
in the
give
next
that
few
secret
months
away.
because right now
You
Tina's
can't give that secret
traveling
away.
behind him in another vehicle, and they kind of want to ride together. So they kind of admire what we have going on here. And then from there, we came to Mountain View. And so we came to Mountain View day before yesterday, and we leave tomorrow morning. We're going to be traveling the next few days to get back to
Didn't
St.
we just get
Louis.
here yesterday?
What's that?
We just
Yeah.
got here yesterday.
Day before yesterday.
Yes.
No, we just got here
we
yesterday.
got here yesterday.
We just got here yesterday. So we went yesterday, stayed today, and then tomorrow we'll head out, travel. I've got a pretty busy work schedule this week, so we'll be traveling in the breaks and mornings or evenings. Slated to get back home and get in our house on Friday. So that brings us to Airbnb. Somebody's in our house right now. It's been pretty much 90% rented from the time we started it 2.5 years ago, March of 2018. So 2 years and 4 months. If you saw our update in April, we told you how wonderful the Airbnb has been. No damage, somewhere around $60,000 in revenue, probably a little bit more than that. We had a bunch of cancellations during the pandemic, which actually on our last update, we said we were very fortunate and pleased to have a home base to go to during a pandemic. And I might have even said on that, I don't see us ever selling the house or stopping the Airbnb because of the income stream and that there hasn't been any problems. And so why the 180? Why did we decide to stop Airbnb? When these people check on a Friday, we're not going to Airbnb again. All right, so let's talk about the events that led to the change.
I know.
So the events that led to the change. So the pandemic actually is getting some notoriety or press or stories being written by some people that say the exodus from the cities to the country is going to be a huge exodus because people that are in the pandemics in the cities not being able to find things and being in all these lockdowns are going to sell their homes and move to the suburbs or move out to rural areas. But the pandemic's not the reason that we did it. Not the reason we decided to stop Airbnb.
No, not at all.
The reason we decided to stop Airbnb is because all the unrest. So I don't know if we mentioned this, I think we have. We moved into the city limits of St. Louis. Chris and I, neither one have really lived in the city limits of a large city, but we liked traveling to them in our travels, and we loved diversity. We were familiar with the area that we moved into. We loved the old gingerbread houses. And we also loved when you went to the stores there that it was lots of different demographics. So we wanted to be in a more diverse culture. It's one of the reasons we moved there. And so shortly after we moved there, maybe a year after we moved there, we did about a huge remodel. It was probably around $100,000. We redid the whole main floor to make this house what we wanted. And really, we were treating it our forever home. We were treating it as a forever home. And then the Mike Brown controversy happened, and there were riots. And those were mainly in Ferguson and not really near us. And then when the verdicts for the officer of the Mike Brown stuff happened, there were more riots, and they started getting a little closer. And then a couple years later, there was I forget the name. There was a police officer, Stokely, something like that. I don't know much about the case, but there was a drug dealer. I think there was video that showed him trying to ram in or run over some police officers. And then there was a high-speed chase, and then he was shot. And anyway, some people said that he was shot and he didn't have a weapon, and that officer was on trial, and he got basically acquitted, or there were no charges that came out for this officer. And all the way leading up to that verdict, there was mobs of people with masks and all kind of stuff. You could tell there were going to be riots, and the riots were just insane at that time. And they actually came into our neighborhood. They threatened to come into our neighborhood. Actually, I didn't actually see any riots in our neighborhood at that point, but we had to cancel a couple of events. These are free events that we did at our coffee shop that were for our community. They were well-attended events of all cultures came to these events. They were movie nights where we showed a kids movie. And so I really was frustrated that we had to cancel those events. So we were starting to get frustrated with all of the kind of the at that point, that's when really the anti-police political stance of the city of St. Louis started taking place. The aldermen actually did a referendum honoring the drug dealer that was killed, and they were pretty much against the police. And we're very much pro-police and supporting the police. But we're also very diversity support. So it was just unfortunate. And we still continued. We weren't planning on selling at that point. In fact, that was right about the time we started Airbnb. Was when that started going on, we decided to travel. And so with this last one that happened, the riots have been more upscale, and they were closer to home, and I had to be away a little bit. We actually bought a gun for Chris. She was sleeping with it under her pillow, and we don't want to live like that. So we decided we're done with these inner cities, big cities. We're going to be done with it. So the reason we're stopping Airbnb, even though it was the experience was wonderful, we still didn't have any damage, no horror stories there to share, if that's what you might have been thinking. It's really just the state of the political climate of the city of St. Louis. And we talked about it a little bit for the safety aspect, but also from the net worth or the value. We were afraid that house values would drop. If you've ever been through St. Louis, there's areas of St. Louis that have beautiful homes that are just boarded up. And so at some point, these different areas can change and completely lose their value based on higher crime and that type of stuff. And that's what we're seeing. So we talked about selling, and we decided it was the right thing to do. So a few days before this vacation, we took the pictures and signed the contract to put the house up for sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we couldn't do the outside pictures because our roof was being done. We had some hail damage recently, and the roof was being done. And so the realtor came, they took the pictures, they put a coming soon sign in the yard. They put it on the MLS as coming soon, not listed yet. And we listed it at $300,000. And so we take off on our trip. It's going to be another week or two before the pictures would be done and it would actually be listed. So we're thinking we go on our 6-week trip and we come back. Probably about the time we come back, it'll be listed and we'll start getting some hits on the house. She gets a phone call 4 or 5 days into our trip from the realtor.
2 to 3.
Somebody made an offer without even seeing the house, just on the pictures, for $30,000 over what we were listing the house for. So needless to say, we signed the contract. We set the close date for August 6th. And so we've got about two weeks to pack. And surprise, we're full-time RVers now. So not really how we intended, but it was just kind of shows how large world's events can change. At least we change when things like this happen, right or wrong. These kind of things get us to talking, and we decided to look for property. We want to look for property that is similar to some of these properties that we just went and had fun at. We thought about coming out to Washington, coming out to Oregon, because there's much more of those crystal clear water type properties out there. But we want to stay closer to these guys. So we're probably going to, right now, the plan is to look in the Tennessee area, central western Tennessee, central eastern Tennessee. Basically from, if you take where they live, which is Murray, Kentucky, south of there, within 2 or 3 hours, somewhere in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And our requirements are a few acres, and it's got to have a creek, a spring-fed creek or year-round creek on it. Not a wet weather creek, not a muddy creek, but a very crystal clear creek so that we can play in the hot summer months in the creek. And so that's the plan. That's the announcement. We're not going to Airbnb. It's not really Airbnb and VRBO's fault. Again, we had a wonderful experience. Would we do it again? Probably in the right environment. I'm not going to say we won't, because it was a good experience. We actually talked about not selling the house and still looking for property, but we just we've had a business so long with coffee shops and then the Airbnb. While we're looking for property and while we're full timing, we just want to not have to worry about anything. So with that being said, that's the announcement. Now for the last few minutes here, we got a few minutes left. We're going to sell some stuff in the RV. We're going to be selling stuff from the house. We're going to track the journey. We're going to go live as much as reasonably possible without causing too much stress during this time. But we'll show you kind of the downsizing process, the things we're getting rid of, what we're going to put in storage, which is going to be fairly small, we hope. That's the plan. We're giving stuff away, donating it, and selling it from our house. We've learned enough in the year that we've been in this new Mar Canyon Star that we have some things that we want to do to it because we're going to be in it full time now. And so one of those things is we're going to get rid of the dinette.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get rid of the couch behind us. We're going to replace these seats. So the replacement of all that or the replacement of these front seats is just because of the poor quality of the material in these RVs from the furniture. You probably see, if you go on any of the Flex Steel or Thomas Paine or any of the other ones, they peel. They start bubbling up and peeling. And pretty much all of these have a little bit of a problem. And it started pretty quickly after we got them. So we're going to replace these seats with some better seats up here in front. Then we're going to get a theater seating couches with recliners. We're going to move the TV from up here to over there, and we're going to get rid of the dinette. And Chris is going to build and install a folding table there with some chairs. So it's going to be a little bit more like we want it. It's not going to be $100,000 house remodel, but it's going to be our RV remodel before we start going out full time, or as we start going out full time. But I'm saying that because if you need a dinette, or you want a jackknife couch, or you want these old chairs because you want to reupholster them, or you think you can put something over them, they're all going to be up for sale, or they're up for sale pretty much right away. We're going to be in St. Louis, Missouri for 2 weeks. If you're coming through that area and you want a great deal on this stuff, feel free to give us a ring. We'll be selling a bunch of other stuff from the house. So how can they track what we're selling? Are we doing that? Are you doing that on your personal Facebook page or on
I can do it on ours too.
Okay. She's doing it on her first personal Facebook page, which is Christina Decker Solomon. Christina Decker Solomon. So if you want to look at Marketplace and see anything that she's posting on there that's for sale, if they're small things, we can ship them. If they're larger items, obviously you'll need to make arrangements to pick them up. But that's the deal. So we do have some camera equipment or a gimbal that's going on there and a few other things. So stay tuned for that. And I guess we're just kind of entering a new season, wouldn't you say? Again. With our channel, we haven't had real seasons. We haven't said seasons. We just kind of had all these video content. But when I think about it, we kind of had the trial period or the trial season, which was testing out Airbnb and a 26-foot bunkhouse travel trailer that we pretty much lived in full time because the Airbnb did so well. Then once we sold the coffee shop, we kind of moved into that pretty much full-time travel, and we went on travel, and we did that for about a year. But we did upgrade to a bigger trailer based on what we learned during that trial period. We went to a 34-foot bumper pool with a couple of slides. And so we upgraded so we'd have a better living experience, and we liked that trailer. It was good. But then we decided we wanted to be motorcycle people. And so about a year later, I would say now you're in the season 3 or chapter 3, we became motorhome class A toy hauler, dogs, motorcycles, travel people. So now another 9 months later, we're segueing to full time. We're going to look for property, and we're still motorcycle and dog people. So if you like dogs, you like motorcycles, you like travel, you like to see somebody make a big life change and sell everything they've got to downsize, make sure you subscribe to our channel, set notifications, and check us out when we go live. Check out some of our videos, give us feedback, say hi to us on any of our social media platforms. We love communicating and connecting with other people that are in the RV community, or even just people that aren't in the RV community, motorcycle people, dog enthusiasts, or just good people that want to connect, right?
Mhm.
Anything else? Could you let me talk next time?
I'm sorry.
Did you have anything to say?
No.
Did you, Peyton?
No.
I like to talk.
I don't.
They like to listen. All right, let me see if there's any questions that I missed. Yeah, Charlie Grace, Tennessee is awesome. We knew you were there. Right now we're looking at, I think, probably a little farther away. I'm not sure. You're in Franklin, is that right? Are we looking at Franklin at all? Franklin, Tennessee? Or is that too far east?
There's a couple that are east of Nashville.
But we would love your feedback. We would love your feedback on areas that you might recommend. As I said, more rural, small town, with some property, same acreage, 3 to 5 to 10 to 15, 20 acres is kind of what we're looking for with a creek. Let's see here. Michelle the Great supports all law enforcement. Thank you for that. She says that she lived in New York, used to live in Nebraska. My husband went to Missouri years ago and our car was stolen. Yeah, we've had a lot of car thefts in our neighborhood, which is one of the better neighborhoods of St. Louis. Crime has been going up over the 4 years. Let's see here. Congrats to us. Thank you very much, Sue. Thank you, Backyard Science, for coming in. Dean, what? Hey, Dean, thanks for coming in. Thanks for the congratulations there. Down Under Cruisers. Lifestyle changers are not easy. That's why we try to do one every year over the last 3 or 4 years. We've been changing lifestyle. So hopefully we feel pretty good about this. We've got some more announcements that we're not making right now on some things we're looking at doing. We haven't even told some of our family on that. All of our family is aware of selling the house and looking at property, but we've got some other things that we'll tell you that are pretty cool announcements we'll do when we get back to St. Louis as part of this whole process. And I think that's everything. I thank everybody for joining. Again, we did a review of this Mountain View campground a little bit earlier today. If you're coming through Wyoming on I-90, look at Mountain View RV Park Campground in Sundance, Wyoming. And other than that, we will see you probably next week as we start the packing and selling,
Sorting.
and stressing.
I didn't say stressing. I said
No.
sorting.
We're gonna make it an adventure. Sorting, selling and packing, giving away, downsizing to get ready for living here full time. Now, one final thing I'll say. One thing that Chris did struggle with when we had the house Airbnb is when we would go back there for a few weeks, she'd take everything out of here and put it there because we didn't buy double things in some cases. Some things we did, but a lot of things we didn't. And so one thing that really stressed her about the part-time lifestyle or the 80% full-time lifestyle was having to worry about forgetting things, right?
Because we couldn't park it right there. It had to be on a city street a block away. So it just wasn't convenient.
Yeah. So because the city not being convenient for coming and going and moving everything in and out of this, that's kind of where part of the reason why the property came. Because if we do find property, we're not sure how quick we'll build something there to put the RV in or build a home there. But if we did have it, we can have the RV right there, right next door. And that packing and unpacking process would be better. And that's really it. That's the only other thing I kind of want to point out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks, I think I've covered all the questions. Thank you so much for your support. And we look forward to chatting with you more on YouTube over the next few weeks. Now, we were off of YouTube pretty much for around 16 days because we had no service. So we're just now getting back on. We're glad to be back and happy to share this announcement with you. And we hope you have a wonderful Sunday evening. And we'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Say mahalo.
Mahalo.
Good job.